Having a plan ahead of time, you hear it all the time, but making the decisions and ultimately, what is that doing for you? It's putting time. At the end of the day, time is everything. Time can be your adversary, time can be your ally. You're trying to make decisions in crisis, time becomes an adversary. But if you've already thought of everything ahead of time, now it's an ally.
Spartans, listen up.
We need to sleep better. So how do you sleep better? Never thought about it before. And so I met Jack, I met Essentia. Pay attention to the mattress you sleep on because it's loaded with chemicals.
Recovery, cooling, and pressure relief, all in one mattress. Up to 60% more deep and REM sleep. Less inflammation, faster bounce back. No toxins, no EMFs, no BS.
My buddy Jack over at Essentia, he's kind enough to give us a code for the Spartan community. That's DECA, that's Tough Mudder, all of us. Use Spartan25, get a discount. Prioritize your sleep so you can sleep faster, you can do more burpees, you can train more, you can get healthier. When you sleep well, you live well.
Welcome to the Hard Way podcast with Joe DeSena, founder and CEO of Spartan Races. We're teaching you how to overcome your obstacles in your life the same way we teach our 10 million plus Spartans to overcome obstacles on the course, with insight from the smartest, most accomplished experts from every corner of the world. Get ready to elevate your life today.
Joe DeSena here, CEO and founder of Spartan, host of the Hard Way podcast. I got my old buddy on. We just reconnected here after a long time. Clint Emerson, retired SEAL, crisis management expert, and author. It's been a while. How you doing?
Good. You, Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Where are you now? You in San Diego?
I'm in Austin right now doing active shooter training for one of the companies down here.
What year did you retire?
2015. So I've been out 10 years now and it's flown by.
I've gotten to know a bunch of SEALs. Maybe SEALs do better with retirement, but has it been tough, re-entering the civilian world over the last 10 years? Like, is it not as exciting?
It's not as exciting as you can imagine. Yeah, you go from hero to zero in a heartbeat. They literally take your white little CAC card with a computer chip on it and you turn it in and they give you this flimsy laminated blue retirement card. Got a horrible picture of yourself on there. It doesn't really have any information, but it does signify the transition, right? He's like, hey, you were somebody. Now you're nobody. You got base access, though, for the rest of your life and horrible healthcare. But hey, thanks for coming. I think a lot of guys have issues. I've had my moments. They were delayed, but I had a plan, and I was executing that plan like literally 24 months before I retired so that I could step out and work for myself. And I think that definitely went a long ways, but you get to the 5-year mark. I tell people all the time, when you're going 120 miles an hour in the SEAL teams and it comes to zero, the baggage is going to hit you in the back of the head eventually. You can't outrun it. It's just going to happen. So I delayed for about 5 years and then the baggage then caught up. It could have been, some guys PTSD. It's just all the stuff you go through, you bury, compartmentalize, put it away. I was one of those guys like, I don't understand all these guys with PTSD. It's all bullshit. But I definitely got my own dose, and that slowed me down for a minute. But I've definitely found just staying busy, looking forward, not looking back, certainly has made the transition a lot easier.
Did it help? I mean, you wrote a book. A lot of SEALs do write books.
Well, yeah, you get, there's a joke. You go to Buds, when you sign your Buds contract, it's like signing your deal with Simon & Schuster as well. I honestly had no intentions of writing a book. I had a good friend of mine. He's an older guy. He was an established author. He said, hey, I've got an agent. I got the publisher. Why don't we do a book together? And I was kind of like, because I was one of those guys sitting in the squadron space, like knocking those dudes, like on a regular basis, And so he offered it. And, once again, the transition plays a big role. Economically, it was kind of stupid not to, because Simon & Schuster, at that time, the book deal was really nice. And so economics supersedes everything else. And I couldn't worry about what my peers thought of me at that point. So I was like, yeah, I'm doing it with this guy. He's reputable. And then we got about a month into it and he blew his back out, had to have back surgery. The surgery went sideways. And I was left with putting this book together all on my own. I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. But 100 Deadly Skills ended up becoming hit the New York Times list for like 9 months straight. Turned out pretty good, mainly because it's illustrated, right? It's like marine proof. If you eat crayons for a living, then you will digest this book really well.
So 100 Deadly Skills. So tell us about the book quick.
Yeah, so it's given civilians skills that give them the advantage over bad guys using a lot of bad guy tactics. I talk about deceptive stuff, things that thieves do, things that all your common criminals do, and I turn them into a skill so that, hey, if you know this skill, then you'll be able to recognize it when it's being used against you. For every illustration, there's a narrative. You put the two together while you're sitting on the toilet, and you will get off the toilet a smarter man.
I like it. What happened? What happened to your buddy that was writing the book with you? Was he annoyed that he didn't get to finish it with you?
Well, no, he's a great guy. He's got a big heart, so he applauded the success. And he let me run with it, and it turned into a series. So I ended up doing 3 more 100 Deli skill books. Yeah, one that's more survival based, another one that's combatives, so and then the other one is more for mental health. Like, it exercises your brain, gets your cognitive skills up and running. They're human generated puzzles, not computer generated, but each puzzle actually forces certain parts of your brain to get involved and kind of help with stress, anxiety, but also head off at the pass, Alzheimer's, dementia, and some of the other things that seem to creep in from time to time for us.
Writing a bunch of books probably helped the transition. I mean, you had purpose. Right. Not every veteran has that.
No, one, it just gives you something to do, right? Idle hands, right? So I definitely am one of those that would have, who knows, got in trouble in some form or fashion. But yeah, it gave you purpose. I wasn't too keen on like the whole, as we got closer to the books coming out, the publicity side and Fox and Friends and the Today Show and all these things, they line up. I probably, if I was programmed a little differently, then things probably would have gone differently, but I was pretty measured in my answers. I was pretty gun shy with all of it. I thought it was all stupid. I didn't think about book sales. I was just like, man, my buddies are going to see me on TV now. Yeah, the SEAL community has a way of, you know, when you're out of it, the reminder is for some reason it's programmed into you, right? It's a fence line full of sharks. You know what I mean?
I was with a SEAL recently, doing Murph, and we were talking a bit about it. And he was talking about how lucky he was because as a SEAL, you all do tend to push each other a little further. He said it'd be so easy at midday. You already did so much work, so much training to just sit on the couch and, watch a Netflix series. And then you look out your window and one of your buddies is going for another run. And you're like, shit, all right, I gotta go level up. I gotta go, right? So like everybody just keeps doing a little more.
Yeah, that competitive spirit is awesome. And it's a huge advantage, especially on the battlefield. But it's still there, even when you get out and you're by yourself, am I really representing right? And publicity doesn't seem like the right thing to do, but you do it anyway because, well, at some point you have to go, hey, my resume is my resume, and that piece is behind me. I'm moving forward in a new direction. You got to embrace the new direction and do the best you can.
Talk to me about post authoring, post book. I've written some books, and you think you're bigger than you, at least I did. And then, it's over, and now you got to go back to life. What have you been doing since?
Fortunately, my primary job is Escape the Wolf, which is a crisis management company. I've always maintained my clients, and the books were bonus. So I didn't allow myself to get wrapped up in, that book stuff too much, or let the ego take over, or at least try not to. And when you're out dealing with clients, they're usually smarter than me. So that keeps me in check, keeps me humble, and just serving them the best I can.
So give me an example. It's an awesome name for a company, by the way, but give me an example of what a company would hire you for. Like, give me a crisis management situation.
Man, it's evolved. As you know, if you're not evolving as a business, then you're not going to get anywhere. So when I initially started, it was a little handbook I'd put together, and it was while I was still in, because I was one of few guys that were like doing solo operations, right? My lessons learned were kind of kept in a three ring binder. And then I took that three ring binder, I sent it to some little publisher and said, "Hey, turn this into more of a handbook." And then I started handing it out for free to any of my students that I had at the NSA, because I ended up running like a 3 month pipeline, changing, basically transitioning guys from operators, body armor, night vision helmets, to operatives, which is, more business casual, working in embassies, and working alone. Somehow the book ended up in the hands of a retired FBI guy who was the global security director for the Wall Street Journal. And so as I was about to retire, he hits me up and says, "Hey, if you can take everything in this handbook and turn it into e-learning, I'll buy it." And I was like, "E what?" And so that was the moment, though, that this little handbook I put together called Escape the Wolf, which was all my lessons learned on how to not get caught when you're operating alone, basically turned into a company in the Wall Street Journal. I was fortunate. They became my first client. You're a risk taker to a certain degree. And so the risk on that for me is I had a USAA credit card with a $60,000 limit. This guy told me, "Hey, it's going to cost you about 100 grand, turn this stuff into e-learning." I was like, fuck. Okay. Like, well, whatever. So I put $60,000 of that on a credit card, and I did not have a contract with the Wall Street Journal. But I thought, hey, this is a good idea. Maybe if they don't buy it, somebody will. Even though I didn't even know where to begin on how to sell this shit, right? Took the risk. 8 months later, called the guy up, said, "Hey, I've got the e-learning developed. It's interactive, it's GUI, it'll deploy on your servers, it's SCORM compliant, blah, blah, blah." Put it on his LMSs, he bought it. And then ever since then, so evolved out of e-learning, because now e-learning is nothing just but videos now. I've got a great production company now that I work with. Now we create these very informative, entertaining Hollywood style videos that are customized for different companies. But I also have videos and handbooks and policies that they can just kind of buy a la carte as well. So a lot of what we were doing at the beginning was very policy training and tools. Now you fast forward, I've become kind of a fixer. So I've got a lot of companies that say, "Hey, we've got this problem. Can you solve it?" And that's probably the best part of the whole, like, problem solving is probably one of my favorite things, especially when you can think outside the box to get it done. So I've basically now kind of sometimes filled the gap between law enforcement and the actual complaint of whatever that is. A lot of your law enforcement agencies around the country are undermanned by thousands. And so they can't always just act. So now I'll roll in, and I'll give you an example that's pretty cool. There was a serial rapist in a certain area, and the way that he would attack was always, a specific laundry room. And so I set up cameras, hung out, pulled basic surveillance, got ID quality of this person. Once I had ID quality based on his behavior, then I was able to then surveil him even more. And he was coming back to the same location over and over and over again. He was sharking the parking lot, then he would shark the building, then he would end up down doing a drive-by or a walk-by of the laundry room. And I would watch him do this. And then, I collected enough information, had his license plate, everything, turned it over to the police. They were able to subpoena his phone and his vehicle. GPS data showed that he had been in and out of there for a year. All the dates that he was in there corresponded with the 6 different rapes. So that's one example of kind of like a fixer situation. But it's, like I said, it's all evolved. I still do the basic stuff, but I also now do this other stuff.
I love that. I love that. Of all this experience, of all this, learning, authoring, teaching, as civilians, as folks listening, watching this, what are some basic skills we should all have? A couple of things we should all we got to know.
Mindset is probably the first piece of the equation, because you're not going anywhere if you don't have that. So having a plan ahead of time, you hear it all the time, but making the decisions. Let me back up. There's clinical decision making, then there's tactical decision making. Clinical is when you have plenty of time and zero stress. That is when you want to think about what you're going to do when a good day goes bad. Tactical decision making is something that comes with time. The more that you do clinical, the better you'll be at the tactical. Tactical is I've got zero time and more stress than I know what to do with. And you got to make the decision. So, for civilians or anybody for that matter, it's better for you to think about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, the routes, the exit in the time of crisis ahead of time. When I'm nice and calm, I'm sitting at that restaurant, I'm sitting at work, I'm sitting at my house. I've got everything thought out. So now when crisis strikes, all I have to do is action those exact decisions that I've made 1,000 times during peacetime. And now when I get into chaos, I can just act it out. And ultimately, what is that doing for you? It's putting time. At the end of the day, time is everything, right? Time can be your adversary, time can be your ally. You're trying to make decisions in crisis, time becomes an adversary. But if you've already thought of everything ahead of time, now it's an ally. And you're taking time away. Let's say it's an active shooter. For every decision I've already made and I act out, I'm taking time away from the shooter, right? I'm gaining it for myself. And at the end of the day, the more time I collect, the more opportunity, the more options that I gain and increase survivability. So that's the mindset piece. Skills are the easy part, right? Knowing that, a steel barrel pen I can use to stab you in the eyeball and I can carry it on airplanes, that's easy, right? Knowing that I'm going to use an overhand grip, an underhand grip, knowing that I'm going to strike to the eye or the face because that creates the most psychological damage to a bad guy. The face is very vascular. As soon as you cut it, it bleeds like crazy. If I happen to hit him in the eye, then great, because our reactions as humans, when you talk about the mammalian reflex, I'm going to cover my eyes. I'm going straight to my face to protect myself, right? The skills actually become a byproduct, if you will, of mindset. So if you equip the mindset properly, man, you will fuck some people up.
And it sounds like you could apply those two strategies towards business, towards family, towards anything. Like not just defending an attack, right? Like everybody should do some planning.
Like I said, it's a very redundant thing. It's almost cliche, hey, plan, but the reality is, it serves you far better than having no plan at all.
I love it. Even when plans fall apart.
Even when plans fall apart, there's probably going to be a task or a course of action that still is usable in that moment. Okay. The whole plan could be crap, but there's little pieces of it that you could still apply.
That you spent the time to think through. So how do people find you? Where are you now? You're in Austin?
I'm actually in Dallas, but down here for a client. Yeah, I'm in the Dallas area, North Dallas. ClintEmerson.com is the best way to find me. And then, of course, there's social media, unfortunately, everywhere.
You're doing a lot of social media for the business. You got to do it.
For books, I was, but I've actually made a concerted effort not to be relevant anymore. So I don't know if that's smart or not, but when it comes to what I do for a living, it's really word of mouth for Escape the Wolf. I don't have to market it. And we've created a great reputation for being problem solvers and getting things done. So I don't need social media for that. And as you know, you're very depth in the world of business. It's people you've probably hired in the past who never were on social media.
So listen, you're awesome. Thanks for coming on. People know how to reach you. Love to have you out. If you're willing, or maybe we'll bump into each other out on the road.
Yeah, let me know, Joe. Love what you're doing. Thank you for having me, and love the support anyway. Have a great rest of the week. Great death race.